All right, guys. Hope everyone is doing well. We're about 24 hours away, wherever you are in the world, from some big fights. We got the UK fights coming up. We got the fights, obviously, in Vegas. My guest today, you guys know, he's been coming on the show. I told you guys about him, Joe Stunner Boxing. So first and foremost, for those of you who know Joe, here he is. For those of you who are unaware who Joe Stunner Boxing is, go to his YouTube channel right now. Hit subscribe. He is my UK source that I go to when we get a lot of these UK cards. And Joe, thanks for being here. Appreciate the time. I know it's nighttime, Friday night in the UK, so I appreciate you.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's 10 o'clock. Just turned 10 o'clock now in the
10
UK.
o'clock on a Friday.
Yeah, I've not just long got in from a meal out with a friend, so yeah.
Okay, and so we're already a minute in, but we got some breaking news, and I'm just going to pull up a picture on the screen, Joe, and I want to get your reaction because I woke up to this news in Sydney from the American boys, and I just couldn't believe it. So here we go. We're going to add this to stage. Look at that.
Conor Benn has signed with Zuffa.
Right? Unbelievable. And so Joe didn't know about this before we started the live. I asked him if he heard. He didn't hear. Talk about all's fair in love and war, but Eddie Hearn and Dana White, and I know the boys are going to want to, we're going to get to our picks. We're going to talk about the fight cards, but you and I off record, we're sharing messages about Zuffa and Dana White and the pros and cons of what those first few cards have presented to us boxing fans. What do you think about this?
I have to ask this because, like I say, this is the first I've heard of it. We've double checked this to make sure it's legitimate. Yes.
Yes, 100%. I've got everyone sharing it. Conor Benn shared it. Conor's already given a statement, so I'll pull up Conor's social media real quick. And everybody in the know has been aware of the back and forth of Eddie and Conor.
Yes.
Or my bad, Eddie and Dana.
Yeah. Look, Hearn stood by. First of all, Ben signed with Hearn for his debut. He'd had very little amateur experience, and Hearn stood by him through. To say it's thick and thin is an understatement. I mean, the whole PED thing, the being banned. He fought his corner like he was his own son. So for it to come to this, I mean, I don't really know what to make of this. There must have been a hell of a lot of money on the table, but even then,
this is a post on Conor's Instagram with him, his father, and Eddie. And I quote, "First and foremost, I want to thank Eddie and the entire team in Matchroom for everything they've done for me over the past decade, from guiding me when I first turned pro to headlining stadium shows. They were not only with me for those highlight moments, but stood shoulder to shoulder with me during the tough times," just like you said, Joe. "It's been a journey beyond anything we could have imagined, and for their belief, support, and guidance, I will always be truly grateful. But Zuffa Boxing presented me with an opportunity I simply couldn't refuse. I'd love Eddie to continue to be part of my team and for our partnership to evolve in this new chapter." And he ends with this: "I'm filled with excitement and hunger for what's ahead with Zuffa Boxing. I want the legacy fights, the biggest nights, the biggest stages. I fear no man at any weight, and I'm ready to give the fans the fights they've been calling for. I'm in my prime, and together we have bold, ambitious plans," end quote. Followed by Zuffa Boxing commented, "We can't wait to get started." So, wow.
Ambitious plans, really, with Zuffa. I mean, if you look at this cold-bloodedly, first of all, Zuffa is an organisation. They're only 3 cards into their entire history. There were 3 cards, and they've been reasonably good, sort of small hall card style things. But let's look at it this way. Let's try and. It is a bit of a shock to read this, but it is. Let's look at it objectively. All right, Conor Benn, who would you give him a chance against in the welterweight division or the light middleweights? Not many people. I don't think many people would pick Conor to beat any of the champions at those particular weights. And I don't think he'll get back down to 147. I think he's a 154 guy now, because his last 147 fight was against the South African fella, Chris, I can't remember his name. Van Heerden. Yeah. And that was 4 years ago. I think he's a 154 guy. So what, you give him a chance against any of the 154 guys? Can you imagine the sort of damage that Fundora would do to him? I mean, it's foolishness. So what's he going to do? He's got a big fat wad of cash on the table. He can stay in-house, win that Zuffa belt for what that's worth. pretend that he's one of the leading lights without actually fighting anyone. The whole thing is very sort of PBC-ish, isn't it? From when that started. I'm only pulling things out of the top of my head here because this is a bit of a shock to me to see him sign to Zuffa. But
especially
like
with you know, historically, especially in the UK, the back and forth that him and Josh Kelly have had. Josh Kelly finally putting everything together, beating Murtazaev, is a world champion now. UK versus UK, Wembley Stadium sort of thing.
yes.
And he leaves. Like, well, I mean that. And then at 54, like you said, Seb Fundora, that's a problem. I mean, maybe even Jaron, some people I've read in comment section have said, and this is just speculation, I don't think Conor is ducking anybody, but they said this was a tactical decision, not just a business decision. But we'll see.
Okay.
It's all new. Pretty fascinating stuff, especially if he plans to stay at 54. Zuffa, they signed Jaya Pataya, quite possibly the best in the world. We know about him down here in Sydney. And if anything, down here, the sentiment down here is like when Jai signed with Zuffa, it was kind of like, all right, an international big promotional company is going to launch Jai. It was a bit different than this.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Jai, I mean, I've got to be honest, my eyebrows sort of raised when I heard that Jai had signed with them. But because he wants the undisputed, doesn't he? But yes, to create a sort of American platform, okay, I get that. I can sort of see that. Conor? Nah. Again, this is brand new to me, so I'm sort of riffing here. But maybe he's looking to get that Zuffa belt, wave it around, try and get people to. They'll build him up in America. He's already well known in the UK, obviously, because of his name alone. I mean, those two Eubank Ben fights were solely because of the fathers' names. But yeah. Oh, the gentleman there, someone has left that said, I heard it's a one-fight deal. I mean, we do need to know how many fights is this for.
I'm going to Google that right now and see if we can get anything record. Z Pacino 92 says he heard it's a one-fight deal. I haven't seen anything posted on the Instagram post, both from Zuffa and Conor, but I'm gonna check real quick. And this is, I mean, when Jai signed with Zuffa, Zuffa was only launched like a month ago, right? I'm pretty sure Jai signed before their first event, or if it wasn't before the first event, it was either right around the first event launching, like a month or so ago.
Just afterwards, I want to say.
Yeah. So here we go. So I'm gonna pull up, ESPN.com. British star Conor Benn inks promotional deal. Zuffa has another significant. I'm just going to try to breeze through this to see if it says anything about the multi-fight deal. Details regarding the length and terms are not readily available, and this was posted 90 minutes ago. So as of now, it's still all speculation. This is a developing story, and it's a fascinating story, though. And, say what you will about Dana, say what you will about Zuffa. I feel, and this is just my personal kind of how I'm wired when it comes to competition in anything, whether it's small business, entrepreneurialism, whatever. I feel competition always creates evolution. And so some people might have like the scarcity mindset in another boxing organization. Dana doesn't know, it's bad for boxing. I think the opposite. I think any promotional card with money backing it that gives fighters an opportunity to be seen is a good thing.
Well, the idea of any sort of marketplace, if it's a sort of capitalistic model, is that the ones that are any good will rise and people will go with them, and the ones that are no good will fall by the wayside. So I guess if you're taking it, to mean that, then yeah, Zuffa, if they're any good, they'll rise, they'll survive. PBC tried to do a similar thing by a different name, didn't work because they essentially ran out of money. They were overpaying fighters. They were creating a false economy. Because, of course, fighters who were getting, $3 million for fighting an easy opponent, when they had to take $1 million for fighting a more difficult opponent, they weren't happy. You've got to really, you've got to. The one thing Eddie Hearn does very well is he crunches numbers well. His old man was a chartered accountant, and Eddie's very good with numbers as well. And he won't pay people more than he thinks they're potentially worth. So, if Zuffa, people are saying about Zuffa, they've started off small. Yeah, they should start off small. You don't go in, you don't fire every round in your gun in one hit. You start off small. You pick your targets and then you build on it. And so I haven't got a problem with them doing that. And they are looking to sign bigger names. I emphasize the word names because Conor Benn, no one's going to mistake him for an elite fighter, even though he is a big name. Whereas Jai, I think, there aren't too many people think that Jai isn't the best cruiserweight in the world. Some people might give Zerdo a shout, but they're still building. So you have to start off small when you're building. It's foolishness to start throwing your money around like PBC did. It never works out that way.
Yeah, because the fights still have to take place. You know what I mean? Like, there's one thing with print and promo and hype, but with people, like, I think we've learned as boxing fans from this before. We've seen it before, so it's normal to be hesitant on what Zuffa's doing. But at the same time, what I tell people is that, like, I've been watching the MMA, the UFC early days. I'm old enough to remember the UFC 1993. And then Dana White, I mean, say what you will about the guy, early 2000s, the UFC is failing. He goes to Vegas, meets up with the Fertitta brothers, who are, famous entrepreneurs already at the time. There's two of them. Both have done really well for themselves. Gets $1 million loan to purchase the UFC. And then fast forward 15, 16 years, he sells it for 4 or 5 billion. So
Yeah.
Based off of that, his experience as a businessman, he's done this before. I'm sure this time, when the whole black belt mindset, you become a master at one thing, you could reproduce it. I'm sure he's thinks that he could expedite that learning curve and do what he did with the UFC and MMA with boxing, and that's why he's here. And as fans, if it means more shows and more matchups, I'm here for it. You don't have to like the guy. You know what I mean?
No. I've said this all along. The more platforms and the more promoters you have,
Yeah.
The better it is. The only thing that everybody should be wary of is too much concentration of power in one place.
That's right.
That's what they're all after. Whether it's Turkey Al-Sheikh and Dana, or whether it's Eddie, Queensbury, whoever it is, doesn't matter who it is. They all ultimately want absolute control, because if they get absolute control, they can start shouting the odds. They can start demanding that fighters are paid a certain amount. You will fight on this day against this opponent at this weight, and so on and so forth. But we need to avoid that, because in Britain, back in the 70s, we had what was called a cartel system. Mickey Duff, Jarvis Astaire, Mike Barrett. And they really ruled the roost, and it took Frank Warren, the young Frank Warren, to come along and break it all up by taking it to court, by putting on.
Wow, I didn't know about what era are we talking? What era was this?
1970s.
Wow, I didn't know about this.
Mickey Duff was the leading promoter manager, very, very knowledgeable boxing guy. But him, Mike Barrett, and Jarvis Astaire were the two other guys. Terry Lawless was considered the in-house trainer. What they did was it was called a cartel, because essentially it was a monopoly, because they were all in league with each other. But if you wanted to be a professional boxer, you had to go to them. There was nowhere else to go. And so as a result, you had boxers being vastly underpaid. You had quality was suffering. They would put on whichever fights they wanted. There was no competition. A boxer couldn't say, well, you're not paying me enough, or I don't want to fight that opponent, I'd rather fight that opponent. There was none of that went on. It was almost like a sort of feudal model. And as a result, it took Frank Warren to come along, a young Frank Warren, take him to court. So, I think he tried, if memory serves, he tried to have boxing on the BBC, but the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, they were tied up with the cartel. So there was a big legal battle between the two. But you need competition. If you haven't got any competition, everyone will suffer, from the fighters to the fans. The only people that won't suffer are that fraction of that few people at the very, very top.
Making the money. Monopoly. Yeah, I mean, were the monopoly laws already in place for business? They've been back then?
There are no monopoly laws in England.
No way. Okay, I didn't know this.
In the 1980s, I worked for the marketing arm of De Beers Diamonds in the late 80s. And De Beers are a monopoly, a diamond monopoly. They have mines in all sorts of African countries, but they're based in South Africa. And the reason that they were in London, where I'm from, is, and they didn't have an office in America, is because America has monopoly laws.
Interesting. I did not know that. See, dropping knowledge, Joe Stunner Boxing. I'm here. I know the boys are here for it. The boys are here for it, man. See, because we're an international show. Like growing up in Northeast Ohio, I live in Australia now. You're in the UK. Yesterday, I had Tommy Ranone on, former pro. He lives in New York. He has a show with Paulie Malignaggi will come on. New York Italians. And so, and then one of my guys, Gary 3D Boxing from Texas. We have, and this is why it's so much fun. You and I could meet at a bar hypothetically, and we would have this same chat over like an old fashioned. Why not? It's awesome to have to have the opportunity to be able to do this and connect with like-minded people.
It's modern technology.
It's wild.
I never thought I'd live to see the day that this sort of thing existed, but it did. That's all I'm afraid.
It's excellent, man. Joe, I wanted to talk a little about, maybe we could get into our sort of side of business, the UK card, because a lot of the guys who follow my channel, they're well-rounded, knowledgeable, and then the other half is well-rounded and knowledgeable, and they're going to put a little bit of their hard-earned coin on some fights, and they do their own research. They kind of use me as like a conduit to pick and choose what I say, and then they'll make their own decisions. But the card on paper, people will know about the main event. They'll know about the rematch between Josh and Leigh. And then even here, like on my channel, Bilal Fawaz, I know he's not a household name, but we cover, his last few fights with Junaid Boston, the first one that ended in a draw, and then the rematch, which he won I think a majority decision, and then Ishmael Davis. So before we get to those two fights, because those are the two with the most luster on them, on that undercard, did you happen to see this little interview that Katie Taylor did talking about TMA and how TMA and all the to hear Katie Taylor talk about that and platforming her as like the next or ordaining her, what's your take on that?
She's very good, very good.
Okay, and this is what I was telling the boys. I was like, TMA Ayton could fight.
Yeah, very much so. She's only I think she's 19, or she might have turned 20, but I don't think so. I think she's still a teenager. She's
Randall Light, the Stunner Man.
Yeah, Randall Light, 14. Nice one, mate. Cheers. TMA Ayton, yeah, she's very, very good. She's the type of fighter, even though I think she's only had 4 fights, they're all stoppages, but even though she's fighting lower level girls, you can see the sort of talent ooze out of her. I mean, she's really got that natural ability. I've always said that with these young fighters, the ones that like your Moses Atama, or you can sort of see it's how they get their work done. There's just something about them. I'm trying to avoid the phrase X factor, but you know what I'm saying. And she's very, very good. So keep an eye out for her. Yeah, definitely.
So she's fighting a girl, Catherine Tacon Ramos, massive favorite. And this is what this is what you see in boxing a lot on the undercards of prospects that promotional companies are backing, because she's not just a prospect. Matchroom is putting energy behind her, and she's like a 25-1 favorite. Yes. How she operates, though, in terms of her style, just giving some of the punters a bit of perspective here on points, because if guy, I always talk about value on the channel. There's no value in taking Tia on the money line. You get $2 for a $100 bet. But on the points, she's a plus 145. So $100 on points to Tia just to win. I think it's an 8-rounder. 100 will get you your money back plus 145, and the stoppage is a 57% return. Just off jump, without putting you on the spot, do you see Tia on points? Do you see her actually winning by stoppage?
Put a gun to my head, I'd go stoppage. But I know the other girl hasn't been stopped. I think I'm right in saying, because I looked at this. I didn't do a preview video, but I looked at. I don't think the other kid's been stopped, and she's young and ambitious. But Tia hits hard. It's her technique as well. She's got that power mixed in with the schooling.
Technique.
I'd say 60-40 leaning towards a stoppage, but that's my exact play. I shared it in my Discord, a little prop bet, because generally in over the last, we'll say 18 months, the only woman that I ever bet a knockout prop on is Gabby Fundora, and she's come through her last few fights. They're tall, rangy, aggressive, and she's really fun to watch. I'm hoping that TMA Ayton is my second one, so I'm kind of leaning with a little bit of hopeful aspiration here, but that is my pick. And
And we're not going
There
to go through
is
the whole.
there is while we're talking about girls who have a bit of power, you're probably familiar with the Turkish lady Elif Nur Turan, who is
Yes, she
smashed up.
just fought. She fought 2 weeks ago, and then she was coming off the
She was
viral
ill.
performance 6 weeks earlier,
Mm.
and
She was ill. She was ill,
oh,
and
so,
she went the distance, and she had a bad case of flu or whatever it was. But
all
she
right,
still managed.
boys. So, boys, do you hear that? Because I didn't take the stoppage, but a lot of the boys took Turhan to win by stoppage based on her
I
previous
did.
performance.
I did.
And Joe Stunner Boxing telling you she was sick. She was under the
Yes.
weather.
I
So
normally you hear these things and you think, nah. But I know it was a quick turnaround. It was only about 6 weeks, but I think she was ill,
okay,
and she fought like it as well.
she fought really green. I like. This isn't a channel where we make fun. Like you'll never hear me talk negative about any fighters, right? You know, it's a blood sport. People lose their life in the ring. It should be taken very seriously. So you're not going to hear that. But so the adjective that from what her performance, the stoppage viral performance looked like compared to this last one, it's fair to say she didn't look herself. She
No,
definitely looked. She definitely looked even in her style, in you know her the output, but she looked like she was falling apart a bit.
she looked weak, physically quite weak, and
Yeah.
she looked like she was trying to find that one big wallop. And uh, yeah, I remember seeing that and thinking there's something wrong with the girl. Maybe it's the quick turnaround, but no, she was ill.
All right, and so we're gonna move on to Sandy Ryan versus Zamora. Another one of these fights where if the boy, if you want to get action on it, the money line, you're not really getting much value, so it kind of forces the punter to go for method of victory either side. I mean, if you're a Ramos fan, plus 1100 is massive. Do you see Ramos upsetting Sandy here?
No, but I think she'll probably go the distance. Am I right in saying she's not been stopped? Or I know she's got a patchy record, but
I
or
don't
she,
think she's been. I don't think she's been stopped, and Um, I'll just pull it up real quick. So when I use BoxRec on my mobile device, it works perfectly. But when I use BoxRec on the live stream, it's blotchy. So I'll just pull it up here. But I like that too. I like Sandy on points here.
yeah,
You know, 2 minute, and I don't really take a lot of other ladies by knockout, like I said. It's kind of the smart pick. So Sandy is fighting. Zamora is 12-10-2. She's been stopped once,
okay,
and that happened in 2015 in her fourth pro
well,
fight.
that's
And
nothing.
yeah, it's nothing. So she's a tough, seasoned veteran. I see a record 12-10-1. I see somebody who knows how to operate. So I like, and even the points don't pay much though either. 132, that's where all the money's coming in. That's that's kind of like how we see the outcome based on if you're just reading the odds. What do you
Yeah.
make of this of the co-main? I want to jump to the co-main with Bilal and Ishmael Davis.
Oh, interesting. Interesting backstory to Bilal, as we know. He, I think he, I mean, he's about 37 now, so he's no spring chicken. But he had this issue where he was almost deported. He was an illegal alien. I think he was. I want to say he was trafficked or something like that as a youngster. Horrendous backstory, but he's come good. He won the English title over Junaid Boston. And God, I mean, if you ever need an example of someone who's got some mental strength, it's him. And he was so delighted to win that English title. He couldn't believe it. Well, now he's getting a chance at the British and the Commonwealth against Davis. But I think it's a great matchup, a really intriguing matchup, because Davis has done well to come back from 3 consecutive defeats. And he was stopped by Boachuk, I think, rather sort of revealed him to not be world class. But at that level, at the British sort of European level, he's a threat. Difficult one to predict. I mean, I go for Davis, but I certainly wouldn't rule out Bilal.
Yeah, so Ziggy says Fawaz Davis goes the distance is good value, don't you reckon? Stunner, also from
Yeah,
UK. That's what most of us are feeling. Do you think
yeah,
it goes the distance?
yeah. I think so. I think I'm going to stick with Davis. I tend to try and go with my head rather than my heart, but
Yep.
I think Davis will probably win it, probably on points 116, 112, something like that.
Yeah, so if you look, guys, if you look at your books wherever you are in the world, currently in Australia, sports bet showing the fight to go the distance $1.28. So all the money's that's the more practical bets. The sharp money would be Ishmael Davis by stoppage and at plus 500. I've seen some people doing that. We saw the weigh-ins. Did you watch the weigh-ins?
No, I didn't.
Ishmael Davis was actually taller than I thought. So is he listed at 5'11"?
I didn't think he was that tall, but I could be wrong.
Because Fawaz, they list Fawaz at 5'11", and I'll pull up the stare down real quick, and it looked like I was kind of shocked. And I told the boys, I did a breakdown. My dad always said, Johnny, bet with your wallet, not with your heart. And I'm going to go against my own philosophy here. I'm riding the energy, the story, the heartfelt sort of connection with Bilal Fawaz, and he won me money in the last fight against Junaid in the rematch. We got him at plus 280. So I like riding trends a bit, and I'll ride it until the wheels fall off. But here we go.
If you look at his record, I mean, he's got a win over Troy Williamson. I mean,
Davis does. Ishmael Davis, right? I know. Yeah. And Troy just kind of had a renaissance victory over Callum Simpson, in which he was a dog.
Yeah, yeah. And he took Josh Kelly to, was it a majority
decision on short notice. Yeah. The dude's been in there, and that's what I mean. And he's a favorite for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. So I think him on points is the most likely scenario.
Okay, and let's see if Bilal showed any of the face-off. Okay, here's the face-off. Davis tells Bilal he needs to pull out. He said he's saying he's going to pull out of the fight, like right at the weigh-in. And Bilal's a character.
Yeah, yeah.
Is it true? I read something that in 2015 when Fawaz was making a go of his pro career, that Frank Warren gave him either a $50,000 or $100,000 contract, and because he didn't have a passport, the banks in the UK wouldn't allow him to accept the money.
There was something he didn't have. There was some.
Wow, that's fat. And then he couldn't leave. He could never travel, because if he traveled outside of the country, he wouldn't be allowed back in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the exact rules are, but it's taken him years to be allowed to stay in the UK without danger of being deported or not being allowed back in. I don't know the details, but he has that. I mean, I think he came in when he was a kid, and he was
2004. I think he came in 2004.
There's some real awful, terrible trauma that he's been through, and boxing, as the old cliche is, saved him somewhat. But he's only recently, like over the last couple of years, I think, got his papers in order, so to speak. Which I suppose boxing's pretty easy for him. Then he's like, okay, I've been through far worse than this.
Wow, Gunnar Marson 6884. Appreciate your support, Gunnar. He's a JSP insider. He says Fawaz is faster than Boacek. He might stop Davis at +9. I give you that. He does have the speed advantage. Boacek's kind of a one-engine operator, but Boacek's style, output, his straight. Boacek. Every time I write Boacek off, like he just beat Butayev in a very close fight. I thought he was done after. Didn't look good against Michael Fox, and that style's stressful though. Fawaz. Do you think Fawaz faded a bit against Boston late? I think he wastes. I think with his style, explosive, has a long jab. It's not as it's not as efficient as I would want it to be if I was his coach. He wastes a lot of sort of movements that in a long 12-rounder, never gone 12 before. I'm pretty sure this is a 12. True. This is a 12-rounder. I do have Fawaz as my dog of the week, but I am, he's a plus 240, 254 reason.
Well,
so
Fawaz, I sometimes think Fawaz doesn't know what he's going to do next.
It's a bit like that, isn't it? It's a
very odd style.
Yeah, a bit. I guess one could call it creative, one could call it twitchy, but yeah, he's at least it looks like he's having fun in there. And the one interesting thing about this matchup is seeing how he handles a real, like, we'll at least know the litmus test. Is he at that level? Because on the resume, there's not much to be desired on Bilal's resume.
No, to me, you're not going to mistake him for a well-schooled fighter, are you? It's all done on instinct. It's all done on spur of the moment stuff. It's a very sort of herky-jerky style. I don't think you can really compare him to Boacek in any shape or form, really. I think Boacek he's got that well-schooled sort of steady Eddie sort of momentum.
Stressful.
Yeah,
stressful. Like that. Preparing for a guy like Boacek is a
yeah,
stressful situation because you
you
know that he's going to be there the entire fight in
yeah,
your face. In your face. I mean, this is the same guy who dropped Virgil Ortiz
yeah,
multiple times.
we
People
did.
like to throw that away.
Yeah. But
I,
well, people say they were flash knockdowns. The second one didn't look like a flash knockdown to me. It looked quite. I think he got his
I mean,
attention.
call it what you will. You put Virgil on the canvas multiple times.
Yeah.
You know what? That's one fight. I'd love to see Boacek versus Madrimov. We'll see if that those two styles to me. I'm interested to see how those would mesh up. Madrimov, did you watch Madrimov's last fight? It was on the Zuffa card.
Yes.
He looked a bit didn't look himself, did he?
Um, who was it against? I've forgotten the opponent.
Uh, I'll pull it up. I just remember why we watched so many fights here. I remember watching it. He won a points decision. He looked sluggish. He looked slower, and I don't know if it's because of that style over time, but or just a guy named Luis David Salazar.
I seem to remember him winning convincingly, but not particularly impressively.
Yeah, he won a unanimous decision almost on all the cards, but a
Yeah.
lot of people were expecting him to stop Salazar. It just didn't happen.
Yeah, well, he's a strange one, isn't he? I mean, he hasn't had that many pro fights. What was that? His 12th or his 11th pro fight, something like that.
Yeah, that you're spot on. You're spot on with that. That was his 13th pro fight.
13th, not that
Yeah.
many.
No, yeah,
Yeah.
it looked good against Bud.
Yes.
And he had a couple surgeries though. They said he had to get both shoulders worked on. He might have had a knee done. So maybe it was just one of those things getting back in there and dusting it off sort of thing.
Yeah, it was a
What
rush,
is
wasn't it?
Yeah, what did you have a term for that? I heard you in one of your videos talk about I think you might have said it in because Josh Warrington had a fight recently and Leigh Wood didn't. You said Josh Warrington had an
A rust
opportunity,
shedder.
a
Rust.
shedder.
Get rid of the rust,
That's
you know.
yeah. And since we're here on Josh and Leigh, what do you think about this?
I lean slightly, not with any great confidence, towards Leigh Wood. I think they've both looked past their best, but I get the feeling that punch resistance wise, Warrington might be a little bit past midnight. You know what I mean? On his way down. I think the fact that he knows he can be clocked with one punch, because he was actually beating up Wood in the first fight, but he knows that Wood's got the power to sting him and put him on the floor and shake him up. That might be at the back of his mind. He might have tried to bury it, but these things have a way of coming back at you. Leigh Wood, I thought, I mean, all right, Leigh got stopped by his name, Kakache, whereas Josh went the distance, but I wouldn't read too much into that. I think Kakache, I mean, that was super feather, wasn't it? That was a weight up. So probably Leigh might have been a little bit too small. It was a hell of a jump from feather to super feather to take on Kakache, because Kakache is actually quite underrated.
For sure.
But I think probably Leigh Wood has got a bit more left than Josh. But he has not had the, as we say, rust shedder between the Kakache defeat and taking on Warrington again. So there's that to consider as well.
Yeah, Warrington to me fights like he's a knockout artist. Like his style, like he fights like he has a 90% knockout to win ratio, which is admirable. Which is like, you tune in and what do you make of like Kakache older? I mean, Leigh's 37 now. I think Warrington's probably 35, but Kakache's not a young guy. Kakache chose to get stripped. He bypassed Sugar Nunez fight, an opportunity to defend his belt at 30. To fight Wood, which was, he got paid more. So I always, you got to respect that. They're prize fighters and look great. And now with Kakache, he's getting a chance to fight Jazza, who was elevated after the Bonagaziev fight. So things worked out for Kakache. For Leigh Wood, he did go from 26 to 30. This fight's at 26. How much is it? Is this fight in Nottingham?
Yes.
So he'll have the crowd?
Yes.
Let's check the odds. I'm pretty sure Warrington, for full transparency, boys, I'm taking Warrington here. and it's more of a value play. I jumped on him early, maybe 4. So Josh is a plus 120 right now. I'll pull up the odds so you boys can see it. And then Leigh is $1.70. I mean, decent value on both sides. Getting Warrington at plus money, coming off a win. Leigh Wood pretty much getting beat up pillar to post against Kakachi. I thought Warrington was winning. I don't think it's shocking to say Josh was up in the first fight. He gets caught. And they both get stopped by Bronco Lara, which that's kind of what Bronco does. He goes to the UK as a dog and he beats people.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, that's a guy nobody talks about, by the way. Bronco Lara is still only, I think, 32, 33. He's a handful for anybody. I think I'm edging Josh Warrington here. I actually threw Warrington and Bilal on a 2-legger, pays plus 550. Nice little half unit sprinkle if you guys are playing that sort of game.
Thing about Lara is, if you look at the 2 fights, he absolutely beat the crap out of Warrington and it was a painful fight to watch. And then
it was a tough one.
Whereas he wasn't really, even though he's dangerous, he'll always be dangerous. He wasn't battering Wood. Wood just got sloppy and got caught. And then in the rematch, Lara came in overweight and underprepared and all the rest of it, and Wood easily outpointed him.
And Wood won. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a case of how many miles are on the clock. Kakache looks fresh as a daisy because he's paced his career. He hasn't had too many demanding fights. He's learnt the trade properly, and he's quietly gone about his business without any sort of bells and whistles. Whereas, Warrington, like you say, he fights like he's a knockout artist. Weirdly enough, Carl Frampton said that no one's hit him as hard as Warrington, which is strange considering he's faced Leo Santa Cruz and Scott Quigg and all the rest. But no, I think Warrington's looking a bit worn around the edges. I think Wood might take him out sort of 9th round, 10th round.
Okay. Frampton, when I moved here in 2013. In 2015, I hired Luke Campbell as my boxing coach. He went out. Yeah, and he's my boxing coach. And Frampton put it on him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Frampton's hot. I love dude. That dude could. There's been some good fights over in the UK, man. I've always been a fan of UK boxing. What is your opinion on this sort of thing that we're starting to see over the last, we'll say, maybe you could, correct me. I think it's 5 years. It might be longer. Like Frankie Rod coming over from Mexico, beating Galal Yafai. We talked about Bronco Lara. These guys coming over as dogs and then upsetting the odds and winning in these showcase fights. Is there anything to that, or do you think it's a coincidence?
I just think Mexican fighters, they learn the hard way. They pick up defeats. They learn from them. They're largely unknown. In
trial by error.
Yeah, they just get invited over thinking, well, he's got a flashy record, but I don't recognize any names on it. What people don't realize is that the depth of talent in a lot of these Mexican club shows, they're tough. They're tough guys. Well, wasn't it Devin Haney cut his teeth over in Mexico?
So did Brian Norman Jr. Because in America, you have to be 18 to turn over.
Yes.
I think, or 17 and a half. And Brian Norman Jr., Devin, they go to Mexico, Tijuana. And if you watch the movie Creed, they kind of touch on this a bit when the opening scene, I think he's in TJ, he drives down to get fights.
Yeah, I think 15, isn't it? That you can turn 15 in 15 in Mexico. Am I right? Or correct me?
Yeah. And some you would question that. I've seen some fights where we're watching everything around here. So just recently I was watching a fight. I was like, this kid looks like he might be. They said he was 18. I think it was on like one of the. I don't know if it was one of these cards out west in America. The kid looked like he was 14 or 15, no facial hair. He was he could punch though.
Well, in America, you'll know more about this than I will. You're from, what was it, Youngstown, Ohio?
Grew up in Youngstown, yep.
Yeah. You used to have the smokers.
I remember, dude.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, they were these sort of semi-legal little club shows where they very often, young Mike Tyson, for example, when he was about 14, Teddy Atlas was lying about.
Teddy Atlas was taking him to these smokers.
taking him there, and he was beating up men in their 20s.
Nobody believed him. Nobody
Yeah.
would believe Teddy that Mike was 14, and Teddy's like, bro, he's 14. He's knocking out like 22-year-olds.
Yeah, but they were supposed, you'd loosely call them the equivalent of some of these sort of Mexican club shows. Very,
Yeah,
very
we would like growing up, even Southside Boxing Club in Northeast Ohio. It would be like your coach would get a hold of another club's coach. You meet at one of the gyms, and you have legit unsanctioned fights.
Yes.
And yeah, so is that part of the culture in the UK?
No. The British Boxing Board of Control are very strict. I mean, if you go way back, go back 100 years, we're talking about boxing booth fights, which were fairground fights.
Were they bare knuckle?
No. Some were, but I'm talking, glove thing. I mean, Jimmy Wilde, for example, who was one of the great British fighters, a flyweight, the first flyweight superstar, I suppose you'd say. He was notorious because he weighed about 100 pounds. He was like a mini flyweight or something, and he was fighting featherweights. But he would also he was often mistaken for being about 12 years old because he was so small. He was Welsh fighter. And he also had lots of undocumented, I mean, dozens and dozens of undocumented boxing booth fights where you would, it would be a fairground or a carny sort of environment, and you would have the boxer in the booth who wants to challenge him to win a pound or something.
Oh shit!
And then any guy of any weight could go in there. And when they saw Wilde, of course, all 5'2" and 100 pounds of him, they thought, "Oh, beat the crap out of this kid." But of course, they didn't, because he was a hard little sod. So that was probably the closest we had to smokers, an equivalent of.
Yeah, I think I might have told this story on the live stream once, but when I was 12 years old. One of the biggest fairs in Ohio is called the Canfield Fair. It's about 30 miles, 15 kilometers from my parents' house. We're 12 years old. It's during the summer, and they had one of the pull-down boxing bag games. It would have been 1994. I'm there with Kelly Pavlik. We had been friends at this time since we were 7. And so where we come from in the summer, you go to the Canfield Fair. It's massive. There's animals, there's Ferris wheels, there's carnivals, the food, everything. It still goes on to this day. I think it's been around since the 1800s. And Kelly would have me stand in front of the boxing bag, and I look like I'm 7 when I'm 12. Kelly looks like he's 10. Like, he's a little bit beanpole, though. He's a little bit taller than me, and I would pull the bag down, and my job was to promote and challenge anybody for $5 to $10 that my buddy could beat them in this boxing game. And dude, I watched grown men, because it's a sort of thing you bring your girl if you're like 16, 17, 18 years old. I watched grown men try to fight us because Kelly was just taking everybody's money. But that was the closest thing I had to the 10. I know in Australia, I once interviewed a guy named, he's a fighter. He's ranked in the top 15 in the IBF at 130 pounds. Action Jackson, England. Jackson John England. And his grandfather in Australia at the time, I guess in the 40s and 50s, had a thing called tent fights. They're fighting at the tents. And they would just travel around, and they were bare knuckle fights.
Right. Okay.
So I assume that probably came from the traveling culture.
I was about to say, we do have that a history of that in Britain. Probably one of the biggest bare knuckle names historically is Bartley Gorman, who John Fury always, dear old John Fury, always.
John, your boy. That's your boy, isn't it?
John, well, Bartley Gorman, and there's a heavyweight called Nathan Gorman. I think they're related. I don't know in what way, but there's another. The Furies, or whatever their real name is, because they're not called Fury. I think the real name is
no shit.
Partridge is the real surname, I think.
Really? See, we don't. I didn't know.
Tyson Fury's real name is Luke Partridge.
I had no idea. Is this a common thing known in the UK?
Hopefully, well, Tyson likes to sort of sit on it, but I remember John Fury when he was a professional, and I remember. So
the whole thing. I apologize to disrupt you. So the whole thing, because he tells people that his dad named him after Mike Tyson.
I don't know whether the Tyson thing might be might be his middle name, I think.
Okay.
But the family name, I think, I don't know,
Partridge.
is Partridge. But
Okay.
lots of these, if you go way back, like 100, 150 years, a lot of people change their names, especially in the traveling community, to fit. Well, I mean, Fury is a name that indicates a fighting man, doesn't it? You know, because it's the word itself. You know,
Are all the Fury so in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu community so the UFC started in 93, the first ever event, and we know at least in the MMA community everybody knows about Helio Gracie. Helio is Royce Gracie's father, and Helio had I think 8 sons. And so what was happening though, and they had the Gracie challenge since the 60s. They would put the ad out in the back of the Karate Times magazine, and they would challenge anybody from the world to come to Rio to see if their martial art would beat their martial art. And by 93, when the UFC popped off, you started seeing a lot of fighters out of Brazil with the last name Gracie, but they weren't related. Like for instance, a former world champion, Vitor Belfort, when
yeah.
Vitor Belfort came into the UFC, his name was Victor Gracie because they were trying to they were leaning on that lineage and that surname to help promote and sort of propel their career. And then the Gracies made Vitor Belfort changed his name to Belfort, not Gracie, because they were like, "What are you doing?" Is this the sort of thing with the Furies? Are the Furies all related? Because it seems like there's a lot of them.
They are related. Yeah.
Okay.
So
it's not. It wasn't one of these things in the community. His last name's Fury. We're connected with them. We're close with them. We're gonna take the last name too, because in modern boxing, that name holds weight in the UK. It wasn't one of those things.
No, it's the name that gets changed rather than people taking the name when they have nothing to do with the family. If you know what I mean. It's
Okay.
more a case of the name gets changed. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think it was originally there was Peter Fury, Hughie Fury, and John Fury.
Yes.
Peter we know about, who trained Tyson to the world title. Hughie did train Tyson early on in his career, but passed away. And then you've got John, who was in prison for quite a long time for a violent act.
I didn't know that. What did John go to prison for?
Gouging a guy's eye out.
What? Tyson's father?
Yeah.
Oh my God! What a scumbag!
Yeah, he's not. And the guy was about half his size. I mean, don't get me started.
Gouging a guy's eye out is gnarly. How long did he serve?
I want to say 12 to 15, something like that.
Whoa! I didn't know that. All right, maybe that explains his erratic behavior.
He's a strange one, and it's really odd because if you look at Peter Fury, Peter Fury has a very colourful past indeed. If you know anything about him, he's done a lot of time in what we call Category A prisons, which are like heavy-duty prisons. He is the real deal. But if you see him interviewed, he's very quietly spoken. It's the old still waters run deep, and he's very wise. He's a very knowledgeable guy. He is a sort of antithesis of being a bully, which John unfortunately comes across as being a real bully.
And Peter was Tyson's coach.
Peter was Tyson's coach. Yeah, that he took over from Hughie after Hughie passed away. This is not Hughie Fury, the professional boxer, but Hughie.
These are the fathers.
But yeah, and Hughie passed away, and Peter took over and trained Tyson. Best trainer he's ever had, by the way. He trained him for the Klitschko victory.
All right. So Tyson, so the Fury is a full-on fighting family, and Tyson's the one who superseded the expectations.
Oh yeah, by far. I mean, they've had some good. They're tough guys, you know. Don't get me wrong, but you know, boxing is not street fighting. Boxing is not bare knuckle. Boxing is you need to live the life. You need to, you know, as I'm sure you know, you've got to dedicate yourself to it. You can't act the fool. You can't go out for 8 pints of booze afterwards. You've got to be in bed by 10.
I like what Teddy Atlas has that quote: "The ring is the greatest lie detector."
Yes.
You can pretend you could be anybody you want outside that ring, but when the fight starts, you're inside the ropes. All truths will be told.
Loneliest place in the world.
Oh, mate. On that note, man, I think it's a great segue to talk about the card in Vegas. We know there's a lot of fights that I'm super stoked for. I'm sure you could attest to that too. From your opinion, what's the one fight you're looking most forward to on that American card?
On that particular card, well, there's a lot of them, aren't there?
Yeah. But like the
Well,
fight fan, Joe Stunner. Like if Joe, if you had to just sit back and watch it as a fan, basically, this is why I always tell people boxing is the greatest sport on earth, because we get to see in our favorite fighters something we either are lacking as the fan, or we could measure to that we could admire, sort of thing. Some of us like sluggers, some of us like knockout artists, some of us like technicians, some of us like bullies, some of us like a guy who can pick themselves off the canvas and come back from the dead. Like, this is why people loved Arturo Gatti and Chico Corrales.
oh
And
yeah.
so what sort of with that, of all these matchups on this card, what is there, one fighter, is there one matchup you're most intrigued by?
I don't think there's one real fight that stands out. I mean, I thought Frank Martin's last performance was got the attention, didn't he? He flattened some guy.
Francis Bartholomew, 38-year-old
Yes,
former world champion. And
yeah,
and that was his first fight with Buddy McGirt too. And I
yes,
thought he looked evidently elevated.
yeah. It looked like he turned a corner like it was a new page or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But
So he's in there tough with Nahir Albright.
yeah, Albright's. Am I right in saying he's never been stopped? I think
I
so.
don't think he's been stopped. He has a couple losses, but no shade. Yeah, Keyshawn. I think he's 18-2.
That's a good little matchup because I like the mixture of the technique and the power, which is why I really love the two Bivol Beterbiev fights. I thought they perfect blend of power and precision. As far as this card's concerned, I mean, I am intrigued by Barrios against Ryan. I think Barrios wins as well. I think Barrios.
Whoa, that's
Yeah.
awesome, mate. I haven't met many people. Talking to Paul, because I'm friends with Paulie, friends with Tommy. Paulie hates Mario, and I don't understand the hate. I'm like, dude, Barrios, this guy lives the samurai lifestyle. World champion, been beaten up before, picked himself up off the ground before, built himself back up. And
Why does
Paulie,
Paulie hate him? Why does Paulie hate him?
this is why I love Paulie. Paulie hates him because of his jab. he says that Barrios' jab is so shit. He's out on his front foot lunging. He's like that. I'm like, bro, that's why you hate Barrios.
Well, I was about to say he doesn't use it enough, but maybe if Paulie's correct, it's probably best he doesn't use it enough. But
yeah, and remembering how Paulie fought, relying on reflexes and technique, it kind of makes sense that he'll see a flaw in somebody's game and he doesn't like him for it. You say? I like Mario too, and one of my favorite things about the channel that I'm building here is that it's not an echo chamber. We get a lot of discourse, educated disagreements, and it was actually my whole goal doing this from the jump, boxing debates sort of thing, chats, is to do it with an educated perspective. Guys with massive followings, we could clown fighters and talk trash. That's not what we do here. So in the Discord, our Discord, it's kind of cut in half. Ryan, one side Mario, and I love these sort of matchups. But what in Mario do you see that helps form your perspective on the outcome?
Well, I do find him slightly infuriating because I think he shows real skill and real ability, but he goes to sleep too much. So when I say that I think he'll beat Garcia, if he's consistent, and again, I was going to say if he uses the jab more, but if Paulie knows more about it than I do, if he's saying the jab's no good and he's falling over the front foot or whatever, maybe he shouldn't use it too much. But if he throws hands, consistently over 3 minutes for 12 rounds, I think he can unsettle Ryan. I think Ryan makes the mistake of looking for one punch too much. He was again. I mean, I know he beat the crap out of Haney, but even allowing for the PED thing and the being 3 pounds overweight, he was still looking for that one punch wallop. And all right, he got a few knockdowns.
He lost a lot of rounds.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
People forget about that. People forget about that.
He did lose rounds. Yeah, absolutely. Which is why I think Barrios can outwork him. But if Barrios does what he did against Pacquiao, which is, dozing off for 90 seconds of certain rounds and letting Pacquiao pinch the round, because Pacquiao weren't that consistent himself either. A lot of people say, Pacquiao got robbed. And no, I don't think so. I thought it was a close fight.
I just rewatched it and I thought it was a close fight. And I scored it in I had a 115-113 Mario. I did write what you just said. Rounds 4 to rounds 9, Mario stopped throwing his jab,
Yeah.
and he kind of like took his foot off the gas. And for me, afterwards, and I think Mario's backhand, his straight right hand, is underrated. And his defense, he was defensive minded, only got a hit clean a couple
Yeah.
different times. To me, it looked like they had an unspoken agreement between, and I don't like being a conspiracy theorist, but I don't want to say it looked like a sparring match. And then afterwards, Mario said he respected Manny. How could you not? 46-year-old
Yeah.
living legend. The whole crowd is against you. The whole crowd is cheering for Manny, and people act like, oh, he drew with Manny. He sucks. I'm like, that version, even at 46, awkward southpaw, jumping in and out of range, still had quick hands. I feel like even at 46, he would have given a lot of guys trouble at 147 pounds,
How
even on that
how
night.
how old was Manny when he beat Thurman? 40?
I know he was in his 40s, and
Yeah.
people, dude, Keith Thurman is one of the generation's best fighters. People think,
Yeah.
and he went the distance. Well, he beat up Mario pretty bad, but he didn't get Mario out of there.
Yeah. I think if Barrios is on it and he really, because he did get out of jail a little bit with the Pacquiao thing, with the draw and everything. And
The Abel Ramos draw, that kind of was a head scratcher to me.
he's had two in a row, hasn't he? Two
Yeah,
draws in a row. Yeah.
2 in a row.
He needs, hopefully that's a wake up call. And if he thinks, okay, look, Ryan's coming off a bad defeat to Rowley, he looked like crap. He looked like he wasn't even interested in being there, to be honest, Ryan. If I jump on him from the word go and I put some heat on him from the word go, make him fight at a pace he don't like, and put the water on rock pressure on him, then I think he can win rounds. I don't know whether he stops Ryan, but you never know with Ryan. Ryan is a complete enigma.
I feel so, and I think it's my due diligence. I always give the boys a path to victory on any fight, whether I'm picking the guy or not. And I feel with Ryan Garcia, a lot of the people voting for, cheering for him, call it cheer, or picking him to win, are seeing what he is at his best. And that's good. You know a fighter, you look at them when they're at their best, their full potential. If you do that, you have to flip that coin. I think people are saying Ryan's going to finally step up. I mean, he's been a pro for almost 10 years, never been a world champion. I feel the best Ryan Garcia was like the Luke Campbell version.
Yeah.
The one at 20, 21 years old. His speed was quicker. His reflexes were on point. He was just in his early 20s and gets hit on the, knocked to the canvas, picks himself back up and wins by stoppage. I think the version against Raleigh is who he is. I think that he's questioning things a little bit, sort of that lifestyle is showing up. I don't like the fact that, he's changed camp after camp after camp after camp, training in his dad in his living room. Mario Barros is a legit champ. Bob Santos is a legit coach, and I like that he brought in Joe Goosen as well. So they're, and then the size as well. Mario Barros is a big 147, and the 6 foot tall welterweight. Probably by fight night he'll be mid 160s probably. And I think all that aside, you could train for the lead hook, circle away from it, parry the jab, don't get caught with the lead hook. Other than that, neither guy has great feet. People make fun of Mario's feet. Ryan's feet are not that good. And I feel that he stopped evolving. This is a kid who had so much shine as an amateur, so much shine when he turned over, was training with Canelo Alvarez, Oscar De La Hoya's relationship with him. And I just feel like it's what, the famous Marvin Hagler quote, it's tough to stay motivated in silk sheets. And to me, I see a Ryan Garcia who doesn't like going to gyms where he's the B-side, doesn't probably like sparring guys who's beating him up, probably why he never went to Robert Garcia's gym, because Garcia has those guys killing each other. And, it produces guys like Virgil Ortiz and Bam Rodriguez and, a whole slew of prospects, chops there. So there's when I'm doing my pros and cons, it's tough for me to put a dime on Garcia.
I'd also say with Barrios, I like this. We were talking about Ishmael Davis earlier. This applies to him as well. Barrios had a couple of defeats in a row, Davis and Gervonta Davis and Thurman.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back.
He built himself back up.
No, I like that. That to me shows real character, especially when you consider that at the time, what was he, 28 maybe, 27, 28? So he's probably thinking, I'm in my prime. I'm supposed to be beating these guys. But he came back. I think he beat Santiago. And then he had the fight with Ugas, who was coming off the victory over Manny. And he won that. So it shows character if you come back from, especially back-to-back defeats. And I've yet to see. I know Ryan came back and beat Haney, but there are extenuating circumstances there with the PED stuff. So I've yet to see that happen, and that I can't get past that awful performance against Rolly either. I thought that was a really bad performance.
It's a tough one, and so you like Barrios, I like Barrios. I got him at plus 205, and I assume that the odds are gonna. They haven't really shifted all week, but I assume like the influencer sort of crowd will be putting money on Ryan. So I've been telling guys all week, if you're on Team Barrios, probably wait. But maybe sharp money's coming in on Mario. They've stood still though since Monday, and it's already Saturday morning, so they haven't moved at all. What's your read on Andy Hiroka?
No, I think Russell beats him.
Okay, and we see eye to eye, and I didn't know that. We see eye to eye on that one. And maybe this is just me. I highly rate Gary Antoine Russell. I put Gary Antoine Russell really high. Just what he could do at range, what he could do in the pocket, his speed and timing, how mean he could be, and all the tape I've seen on Hiroka. To me, Hiroka's best at range. He's long tool weapons. But I haven't seen anything that makes me comfortable with him in the pocket where Gary's going to force that fight to take place.
I haven't seen a great deal of Hiroka, but I was impressed with Russell's performance against Valenzuela because he won virtually every round against a guy who had a real momentum, coming off the victory over, was it Pitbull? So I like that. I like the fact that, he beat a guy who just won the belt, was probably on a high thinking, what they say, when you win a world title, you improve however many percent. And he slapped him straight down and won virtually every round. And I don't think he'll win every round against Hiroka. I like Hiroka from what I've seen of him. I haven't seen a great deal. He's got quite a high KO percentage, I think. But I don't quite be honest. I think this is his first time in the US as well, so we'll have to see how he travels. I see Russell winning it on points.
Okay, and then the reason why I scheduled this at 9 a.m. just so you know, chat, I got your best interest in heart. I knew the weigh-ins were starting at 10. We planned this last week, and I already knew that the guy, because the chat's gone from 70 to 80 to 50, and I want to watch the weigh-ins as well. I just want to ask you, Richardson Hitchens versus Oscar Duarte.
I like Hitchens a lot. I think the knockout of Kambosos probably flattered him a bit. Kambosos passed his best. I'll go for Hitchens on points.
Yeah, I like Hitchens as well. Duarte showed me something against Kenny Sims Jr. I think Hitchens is going to stay on the ropes that much, and I like Hitchens' jab. It's one of my favorite jabs in boxing. I like his feet. I think I put Richardson Hitchens in the category of, if I had to categorize guys who were world level, ultra talented, but the world doesn't know it yet, like Shushu Carrington's victory over Castro by stoppage. People were kind of like, oh, but people in the Carrington camp knew that he could do that. He just had to believe in himself. I really rate Tiger Johnson. I told people about Tiger versus Nick Flaz. People in the Tiger camp, Northeast Ohio, felt like Tiger has power. He just had to get used to it at 47. And I think Hitchens is the same thing. I think Duarte's style, that front foot Mexican style, I think he kind of, everybody knows what he wants to do. I think Hitchens' jab is going to be the story of that fight.
Weirdly, hasn't he got a stoppage defeat to Ryan Garcia? Duarte?
2023, I think at 135 pounds.
Right.
But that's before he went to Robert Garcia's camp. So he had a camp change, and physically and optically, he looks different. Like Duarte looks different.
From what I've seen of him, and I did watch that fight with Garcia, and it was weird because I know I can't remember who I saw him against. Further down the line, I watched him and I thought, oh, he's pretty good. I like what I'm seeing there. And then I realized afterwards that was the guy who'd been stopped by Garcia, and I'm thinking, I would never have guessed that's the same fella. But
it looks absolutely different, man. I totally agree.
Yeah, but he what was he? Is he 30, 28, 30, whatever he is? I mean, he's probably as good as he's going to get. I just think stylistically, the old cliche about styles making fights, I think Richardson Hitchens can do enough to contain him and win on points. You know, again, 160, probably 160, 112, 115, 113 on one of the cards, that sort of thing.
All right, guys. Joe and I have been live for over an hour. If you're not following Joe Stunner Boxing, go to his YouTube channel right now. He's one of my favorite channels to follow. Joe, I love your style, how you do your thing. Sort of, you're cavalier about it. You use storytelling, which is one of my favorite aspects of being a human. Is I love telling stories and I love storytellers. And so let's do this again, man. I appreciate your time.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me on, and thanks to the chat as well for all the comments. Nice.
All right, man. And we'll be in touch. All right.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
All right, have a good night, man. Enjoy your Friday night.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Busy week for me, man. So I brought you guys. So I did the live with Gary. If you haven't seen my live stream with Gary from 3D Boxing, go check it out. It's on my playlist. If you're not following Gary from 3D, go do that now. Yesterday, my live stream with Tommy Ranone. If you're not following Tommy and Paulie's Big Fight Forecast, go do that now. Watch our chat. That's on the podcast playlist. And then hopefully you enjoy Joe Stunner Boxing. I don't watch a lot of content creators when it comes to boxing, a handful. And, you know, I was fortunate enough to connect with Joe, bring him on the show. And I think as we evolve here, this is what, you know, bringing on the guys that I watch, because you guys ask me all the time, what content creators do you watch? Literally, I watch Tommy and Paulie's show. I watch Gary's show. I watch Joe's show. I watch a few others. So hopefully everybody enjoyed that. Good luck with your bets tomorrow. Good luck with your picks. If you're not in the Patreon, the link is pinned in the comment section. For the JSB insiders who are in the Patreon and in the Discord, I say thank you. Wherever your money is this weekend, good luck, and I'll be in touch. I'll see you guys in the next one.